Hi, this is Angelised by Charlie doing Trans Angel Service. We have the lovely cat here today and we're going to cover how to start making your face look more feminine if you're still having to cope with covering up facial growth and such. I'm going to start with primer. I'm using one from Supercover, which is the Ultimate Face Primer, which is that one there. Hopefully you can see and read that. You only need a tiny bit of this. You only need about a pea amount. So maybe 1-2 pumps onto your finger like so. The use of a primer means that any unevenness caused from hair starting to grow back after shaving or any pop marks or anything like that in the skin, it smooths everything out and it seems to sit a lot better than if you don't use it, as well as your foundation going on smoother. Please write for me. If you have any questions while I'm doing this, feel free to ask so that if anybody else watching this later has the same questions, they can also know the answers.
Okay.
Now, if anybody suffers with shiny skin through sweating or anything through the day, you can choose primers that will work to minimise that effect. All of which are available. People can email me in question if they need to. So, we're starting with covering up the shadow that will come as hair grows back later in the day. Because we started quite early today, Cat's still got a nice smooth face.
Only shaved about an hour ago. Yeah, about an hour ago I shaved.
So you want to pick an orangey colour, like this one here that I'm pointing at. Slightly orangey peachy colour because it will cancel out the blue shadow that you get as the hair grows back through. Now I always put it on using a sponge. Now I'm using a sponge here. You've got three corners on a triangle sponge. You've got a stiff one, a floppy one, and then you've got the final stiff one. We are talking sponges here, people. If you start with the medium sort of stiffness one and put it just onto the edge of the sponge, you don't want to daub all of that into it. So you've got a little bit on and it isn't totally caked and sticking off it. Now, hopefully you can see. I'll see if I can zoom in just a little bit without knocking the camera over. I have lots of noise in the background as I do this. You're stippling on the orange colour over the area where the hair grows. So you're doing it in a motion like that. Now if you do it with a liquid, the coverage will not be as good as if you use a cream. And the makeup that I'm using today is Supercover, which the lovely cat here managed to get herself some the other day. Now stippling it over does take more time than just slathering it at your face with your fingers. But with practice you get quicker at it. It will stand out as looking a lot more orange than your skin type, because that's why you make sure that your foundation is perfectly matched for afterwards.
This is actually a foundation that you're using though, isn't
it? It is, yeah.
It's not a specific concealer, is it?
No, it's a concealing colour of a foundation, but because it's a cream foundation, it covers in the same way a concealer would, if not better, because it's not got all the waxes and things in it. I'm using spatulas to take it out of the pots for hygiene, because fingers and sponges in and out of pots are not good for makeup. You can just lift your chin for me. Now you will need to put this everywhere that you've still got a growth pattern. So if anybody's having laser or electrolysis done, as the areas start to reduce, where you need to put it will reduce. So if it starts to work on your neck and you've only got patches or anything left in your face, those are the only areas you'll need to put it then.
I'm not that lucky.
it's orders of importance and what you can afford, isn't it? There's ways around everything. Don't you head that way for me? Just don't want to shadow everybody watching. Just making sure that it's in enough detail. It's a HD camera, and I was trying to watch it back on something the other day, and it came up all pixelated, so I hope other people can see it in better quality than I can. Maybe it's a resolution on my computer. Now the Supercover foundation that I'm using at the moment I do sell, but there are other products out there that you can use to do the same thing, such as Veil, Dermacover, high street stuff would be Max Factor's Pan Sticks and so on.
One little tip I'd like to give about sort of before you get to this stage is when you actually shave, wash your face in the hottest water you can stand. It softens the bristles and helps you get a smoother finish in as short a time as possible.
Yep.
So especially if you're putting on doing this every day, doing it quickly and effectively is quite important.
Yep. Do you shave using a razor or
yeah.
lift your chin for me?
Wet shave.
Not everybody wet shave. Some people use shavers.
Even if you're using a shaver for the thick thing, I'd highly recommend using a razor if you, because the electric one just doesn't get it.
It's each to their own of what they can get to work for them as well. I met an individual the other day who uses an epilator on the whole of their face except their upper lip, obviously because it's a smaller area, which I thought was very brave of them.
But that's effective though.
There's not much hair growth, it does reduce it. It'll be like having the area waxed, I suppose. A lot more painful than electrolysis would be, certainly. So, if you just turn to the camera for me, you'll see there that I've now covered that. I'll try and zoom back out again so that we can... There we go. So we've got the shadow covered. You can use the same colour to conceal under eyes as well if any of you work night shifts or anything, or on strong medications for any illnesses that give you a discolour under your eyes. So you can use the same colour underneath. Look up for me. Just to minimise the effect of dark circles or any discoloration that you might get with the eyes. If you just turn back to the camera, you can generally see the difference straight away. And we haven't even put your right colour of foundation over it yet. Look up again for me. Now, if any of you are contact lens wearers, you do have to be careful as you do this. Don't drag the brush if you're doing anything over brush or sponge over your eyes. You must just pat it and lightly move it over. Close your eyes again for me.
One thing I've noticed with my face is that I'm very white here compared to the rest of my...
It could be just the shadow of your face. Close your eyes for me. I tend to go quite dark there with the dark circles on my own makeup, my own skin. But being quite white there is an advantage because normally we'd highlight it to make it stand out. So there we go. Now options are is you can set it if you're using like a veil cover cream or anything from Dermacolor before you put your next foundation on. I found that these foundations from Supercover work quite well, one on top of the other. So I'm just going to clean off my spatula and move on to the foundation. Now, this is the professional size of it, but that's a Supercover foundation. You get twice that amount if you want to buy one for use yourself. Now with this, to do most of your face, you don't need much more than about a pea's amount, about that much. As you see there, not a lot. If you need any more, it'll be very minimal. Now, this is where I start to use the other side of my sponge so you don't over-mix your colours. Now, the difference between doing trans makeup and makeup when you've got no facial growth left is you wouldn't use the cream quite as thick as you take it straight out of the pot. You'd use your watering down sprays, which is a hydrated spray that we saw the other day. So, same thing as before, but you're stippling straight over the top of the orangey colour that you've just put on with the actual match foundation. Stays quite thick. Sorry, my boiler in the background. Stays quite thick just on the areas where it needs to be coveraged. And then when you get to the rest of the skin, you can do a lighter coverage so it doesn't look like you've overdone it. Other way, that's it. Now, if I zoom in, hopefully you'll see that. There's quite a hard line developing there of the cream over the top of the concealer. Don't worry about that. That's so you know where you don't blend when you come to putting the rest of your foundation on. And you put the cream onto the sponge in the same way as we did for putting on the coverage colour. My family's so inconsiderate when it comes to the taps and radiator use when we're doing stuff in here.
Just kick them out.
Now, if you plan to wear lipstick or anything with the look that you're doing, also put your foundation over your lips. You can turn your head that way again for me. Now, down on the neck area, as you start blending it in, you need to blend it out over your skin so that you don't have this instant colour change. Which is why we're using the slightly floppier corner of the sponge, because that's better for blending than the harder edge. So as you get to the edge, you push in and almost wipe out so that you don't get a hard finish. And if it's still not as blended as you like it, you can then use the floppy edge to actually just work it in so that you don't end up with just a stop of colour. You don't want to look like the teenage girls with masks on. As a personal hate, I can't stand it when makeup's been ended in a mask of wrong colour.
I think it's also the most common mistake, isn't it? Just getting your neck wrong, and it just stands out like a...
That's why it's important to make sure that you've matched your foundation to the colour of your neck, which is why when I was matching yours the other day, I was doing it on the area of skin that's between the front of the face and the side of the neck, because that's the same colour. You don't match it on the back of your hand, because if you look at the back of your hand next to your face in a mirror, it's not the same colour. Chin up for me. Now, because Kat here also rides a motorbike, as do quite a lot of ladies I know, I will show you how to make sure that you don't end up with masses of makeup transfer into your helmet.
Goes with the territory.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to. There are ways around it. You can minimise the amount that comes flying off your skin onto your helmet.
I'll just treat the helmet as a blending brush. It's a big one, but it works.
Now, unfortunately, for those of you that still have to cover facial hair growth, there is no way you can do makeup to look like you're not wearing foundation. That will only come as and when you've started to treat the hair growth and that's started to stop. As with anything where you've got to conceal it, it will always look like you're wearing makeup. You can make it not look like it's caked on by doing it properly, but you can never make it look like you've not got any on, which is a misconception by anyone who wears makeup.
Which in itself isn't a problem, because if you're doing it properly, you're doing it no different to any other woman. If you're putting it on properly, it just looks like you're any other woman wearing foundation.
Exactly, that's the point. But there's so many people out there. I mean, I've had ladies come to me for wedding makeup who've got a completely unrealistic expectation of covering things up sometimes without it looking like they're wearing anything. And what they don't realise is that people in magazines who've had it covered up so it looks like they're wearing nothing have actually had it edited digitally, not edited with makeup. So there's unrealistic expectations. So, let's come back into those hard lines a second, people. Wrong way. Where you've got the hard lines that run where your coverage lines go to, as you start to blend out from it to put the rest of your foundation, I'll just turn your head that way slightly. As you start to blend out, you blend upwards. Don't blend your foundation down over what we've just been doing, because you'll then start to drag the coverage off, which will then start to undo everything we've just done and you have to start again. So you blend up and away from that hard line there, and as you're doing it looking in the mirror, you'll see where you've worked. So when you come back to it from everywhere else, you're then okay to come down and meet it.
So you're actually coming down round the eyes.
So I'm coming down round the eyes because you don't want to go up and into them. Just blink as you need to as I come round your eyes.
Well, you've also got some concealer on there, haven't you, presume?
So you come down and out and you come to meet the lines, and then you always go up and away from where you've been blending round facial growth. Close your eyes for me. Now you might see, if you look on my palette there, I've still got quite a chunk of makeup left on there. And we've done quite a lot of coverage so far. I've almost done half a face. And I haven't had to put any more on. Because when you come to do the rest of your face, you can actually draw it across the face without stippling it in as thickly as you have everywhere else. Turn your head. Thank you. If you've got open pores or anything around your nose and stuff, make sure you work the foundation into it in a slightly circular motion so that you don't end up with a coverage that's then full of holes. So we're going up from the beard line. Down from the eyes. Everybody always blinks. Because I tried not to, they blink more. I'm just going to move your head slightly, stay there. Try and keep it so people can see you. Or you can see you if you want to watch this back later. Now, I've just got to the point where there's nothing left on my palette, and I've done all but the forehead, so you only need a tiny bit more. So it's probably about that much, which really isn't very much at all. I probably won't even use all of that. Don't ever blend foundation into your eyebrows. It's messy and it looks awful. So you blend up into it like you would with your hairline. You blend up into your hairline. You don't blend your foundation into your hairline.
What hairline?
Well, some people do have hairlines. You still have a hairline. It's just higher, I'm afraid.
Thank goodness for wigs.
Have you seen it?
Even if you're wearing a wig, do you go all the way up to the hairline?
I wouldn't go all the way up to the hairline. If you know, because you wear your wigs on a regular daily basis, you know where your hairline with your wig comes to, so you blend to just beyond the hairline so that you don't have a sudden sort of break in colour. You can, if you're using a primer to help with shine or sweating or anything, put that all the way up to your hairline, because I tend to find that people sweat quite a lot on their heads, and because you can't put primer into your hair, if you've already got the raised hairline, you can put it into it. That's our phone's going off. In between the eyes. Now, if you turn to camera, that is, I'll zoom back out again, a complete foundation, unpowdered. Look up for me, find a spot to stare at. Blink as you need to, it's not a problem. Need your eyes open then. Now you will find, once you've put your foundation on, that we end up getting creases in the foundation under and around our eyes. The way you cope with that is by using a setting powder. Now this is my nice new enormous tub of Super Cover colourless one. If you are from the black or Asian community, you will need to use a setting powder that has a slight tint to it. A colourless one will make you look grey, which you don't want. It doesn't look good. So I tend to do it with a brush when I'm working around the eyes. I've just put a bit of powder onto a brush. The cat closes her eyes. Drag out the creases. Put the powder over the top. Same on the other side. Drag out the creases. My arm's in the way. Same principle under the eye as well. So if you look up for me like you were just with your eyes open, run your finger along to take the creases out underneath your eye that you get from blinking. And you can either press it in from the brush and turn the brush if you're wearing contacts and you don't want to get powder into your eye, or if you're confident enough to just sweep the brush under your eye, you can do. Look up again.
So you're just smoothing the foundation?
Ever such a light touch as well, because you don't want to drag it off. That's taking out your creases. I tend to use the brush around the nose as well, because getting in around the nose with the sponge is difficult. So I just come into the corners of the nose. Now I use face painting sponges normally for setting my foundation. You can use powder puffs, or if you're on a tight financial budget, get a kitchen sponge, a new one, not one that's been used. Take off the scouring part of it, because you don't want to put that on your face, that won't do any favours at all. And just cut it into a sort of half shape, because you don't need the whole of it, you get a couple of uses out of it. And you put your powder onto a sponge like that. Take off the excess in your hands so that you don't end up with a big block of powder in one spot. Close your eyes. And then all you do is you powder at the skin, and it gives you more of a natural setted look than a loads of powder being thrown at one spot of the face look. Now it will look all powdery to start with, which will set and settle once you've set the makeup, which is what the powder does. Now you need to powder everything where you've put makeup. Lift the chin for me. Now the reason for having good lighting when you do things like this is you'll see the shine of where you've not set the makeup. Now once set, that's where you come in with your big powder brush, which is your nice big fluffy one like that, and you take off all the excess. And it just blends it in so you don't look like you made yourself look like a ghost.
I thought that was the fashion these days.
Well, each their own. If you want to be a goth girl, then you'd use a slightly paler foundation than what you are, and set it to look even paler than you are. Right, so that's your foundation. Now, from there on, you're building your makeup by just applying the look that suits whatever your event is for the day. Now, because you wanted to learn to do something that would suit for a lipstick shade you've got, I'll even use your colours so you know which ones they are to recreate it yourself. The only colour I'd say you need different, just find which one it is. You want a nice sort of matte, sort of skin tone powder.
I've actually got something of that sort of shade in cream that was from MAC that was specifically designed for going under eyeshadow.
Yeah.
Which I'm assuming is the same.
Well, this I use this as a base to
so
blend to, but I use the powder because it helps with keeping it nice and smooth. So if you close your eyes for me, when you put your eyeshadow on, I always tend to use one that's the closest match to skin shade if I'm going to be blending lots of things into it. And you apply it from lash line to brow line with a nice big soft brush, which is, if you can see that there. So you go all the way from lash line up to the brow line, making sure you use the colour that you've put on both sides. And if it's a nice enough colour, you can also use it under the eyes because it's not sparkly and it will add to the concealing effect. But you don't want a sparkling shade because if it sparkles, it'll look a bit weird. Now, this is actually very much based on Marilyn Monroe, the makeup I'm going to do. So,
does that mean I need to get a nice skirt?
Well, no, it's not that. It's because it's quite subtle as well as being quite defining. So you want to choose darkish brown. Now, with yourself, I'm going to put colour. I'd go for that one there that you've got on the bottom.
That's not a brown.
Well, you can use a brown or a grey. So if you use that colour there, when you put the colour onto your brush, make sure you tap off the excess so that you don't end up with colour splodges all down your cheeks.
Excuse me?
And when you place it onto the eye, if you close your eye, you just place it and roll the brush and then start to blend it where you want it. Now what I'm doing here is working it into the crease of your eye. So the crease of your eye is where the socket forms a natural hollow.
Presumably if you're doing this yourself, you should be good at winking.
Either that or you get used to doing it by feel. So all you're doing is you're putting a dark crease in, basically, with quite a fluffy brush. Just work backwards and forwards so that you don't end up with it looking too instantly dark, like you've just drawn a line on. You use bristles will sit naturally above your eyeball and fall into that dip where you want the colour anyway.
How far's the colour going up towards my eyebrow?
Where I'm putting it is, if you just look at my eye, so I'm putting it there and blending it all across that area there.
So it's not going very far.
So I'm not going up to your eyebrow with the dark colour. So just checking that people can see. Place it on, roll the brush so you don't end up with flickering of colour, and just work it into the crease. And add as you need to make it quite dark, because we will be putting a slightly paler colour over the top. You don't want to do it too fast if you do this with a black, because it will blend and flick to the inner corner of the nose.
And you're presumably rolling it first so that it doesn't go flying all over the rest of your face.
Yeah. Once you've done that, you then either use a sort of whitish colour, or you can use a very pearly colour. And I think I'm going to use a semi-pearly one for you. I'm going to use this one here, it's a matte colour.
Very similar to that one, isn't it?
Yeah, you could use your silver over it. This is Vex from MAC, it's a sort of like iridescent sort of colour.
Yeah.
Now what I do with that is you go back to the brush you started with, and what you're doing is you're putting this all the way over the top of the colour you've just put onto your eyes. So you're going lash to brow again with it.
That's a thicker brush you're using this time?
Yeah, it's the one that I did the first colour with. And you go from the outside in, because if you go from the inside out, you'll start dragging the colour onto the cheeks where you don't want it. You can go the other way from this side. So just blend towards the middle of the eye, basically. Just like that. So you go from the outside in, the colour. From the inner corner back to the middle, and then across the middle. And it's as you put this on that it starts to blend the darker colour that you put on all together.
So by the feel of it, you've gone quite high up on that.
With that, I've gone lash to brow again, so the only colour that's in the middle is the darkest one there. And then all you do is, if you feel it's not blended enough, you can just run your finger over it to blend it where you think it might need extra blending. Because fingers are good blenders. Now, Marilyn Monroe used to wear quite hard eyeliner. Have you tried, or can you do eyeliner?
I'm terrible at eyeliner.
Then you need to watch the video made a couple of days ago about eyeliner then. Easiest way of doing it is if you get an angled edge brush, either use a straight edge, which looks like that one there, or an angled one. Because it's so thin, you've already got the line already in it. And what you're doing is, with your black that you have here, work it onto the ends of your bristle, work off the excess onto the back of your hand like this, so that you don't end up with loads of black dropping down your face. Then give it a tap. And what you're doing is, if you close your eyes for me, is you place the brush level with your lash line and just press it in. You can always pick up more colour from what's come off on the back of your hand. Once you've got used to doing it like this, doing it with a pencil or a liquid or a gel becomes so much easier. This is an introductory way to do it, or a softer way of doing it. You can also set your kohl in the same way, so if you get used to using kohl eyeliner, you can set it.
This one actually makes sense. I just can't get on with any of the liquid goes everywhere. Yep. And pencils they just don't stick.
I've been doing makeup now professionally for 10 years, semi-professionally since 1996, and it took until 3 years ago to master the art of doing eyeliner on the top of my own eyes. I can do it on everybody else, but not myself. And that was solely because some friends bought me some amazing eyeliners as a birthday present. If they're watching, they know who they are. Now I'm just lifting Cat's eye here to make sure that she doesn't get creases form. As you do your own, you get used to how your eye will sit for when you're doing it. So all you're doing is pressing the straight edge in to the straight line of your eye, and then you can run your finger just to blend it. So you can either leave it so that you've got it hard edged, or you can leave it so that it's just nice and subtly blended so you've got the shadow line.
If you get it slightly wrong, in so much as you've got a bit too much on the brush and some of it falls down onto your top of your cheek,
yeah,
what's the best way of fixing that?
Keep your eyes just closed for me a second. If it's onto the top of your cheek, best way of fixing it, take it off with a bit of makeup remover or makeup wipe. Come back with your sponge and just spotting, because you can then repowder. It's the easiest way of doing it. If you try to sort of correct it, you'll end up rubbing it into your foundation even more, and it'll just look a mess.
So just take it off until it's gone, and then redo the foundation in that area and blend it properly. Yeah.
There are all sorts of tricks that professionals use, but trying to explain them to other people, it just baffles people, so it's not worth it sometimes. The easiest way is just to, if you're doing it, just come with a makeup wipe the entire area off. If you've got mild droppage, like there is one or two spots here, come in with your powder brush and just gently flick it, and it'll take it without blending it into the skin. And if for any reason it has, which it hasn't, but if it had, you'd just come back in with the point of your brush and just dot, not a brush, sponge, and just dot over the top, but it didn't do it, but that's what you'd do if it did. That's only if it's, and when I say mild drops, I'm talking like maybe one or two flecks. Yeah. If you've got big drops of clumps, it won't work. It'll ruin what you've done. So that's a good way of starting to do eyeliner. Do you wear mascara? You do, yes, because you've got it in your makeup.
In fact, it's a very similar one to that, just a different colour.
This one is the Maybelline Express. For those of you that like big long lashes that look very girly, that is a good one. A lot of teenagers use it. I'm quite impressed by it as a whole. Now for hygiene I have to use disposables because it's not your own. Actually, do you want me to use yours?
It's up to you.
I'll use this one, it's easier. Now, when you're doing your mascara onto your brushes, don't pump the brush in and out. You need to push it in and twist it. If you pump it in and out, you're oxidising your makeup, which makes it go off quicker and not last as long.
How long does typical mascara... How long should you replace a mascara if you use it fairly regularly?
Ideally, if you're using mascara regularly, you should be buying a new one every couple of months. If you end up with any form of eye infection, throw it away and get another one, because you just keep giving yourself the eye infection. I was talking to somebody the other day who was telling me that they get irritation with their eye makeup and stuff, and if you have any infections like conjunctivitis or anything, really you should throw away everything you've used on your eyes. Eyeliner, mascara, eyeshadows, because it will all be infected, because it's quite contagious. I've taken off the excess on a sponge, so that, not a sponge, just a tissue, so that it doesn't go all over your face. You keep your eyes closed for me. I always put mascara across the top of the lashes first, then do the underneath, so that you don't have any powder or foundation residue left on them. Keep them closed. Hopefully I can do that at an angle so people can see what I'm doing. Now we'll be doing a video probably later today on how to put on false eyelashes. That's another thing that I've been asked about. I think it was you that asked me as well, wasn't it?
Possibly. We were definitely talking about them at the show the other day.
And if you open your eyes and look up, chin down, eyes up. Now, if you haven't managed to get them doing that, if you've got quite short eyelashes, you can come back in. And if you fix a stare at something, it makes it a lot easier to not blink. Now, all you do when you're doing bottom lashes is you just wiggle the brush at them. You can use the brush vertically like that if you struggle, because some people find that coming in so close with the thing makes them sort of lose focus and things, so you can come in gently like that.
The problem I tend to have is hitting the top of my cheek.
Yeah.
So I end up with it on my cheek.
If you use it vertically, you'll find you'll minimise that problem. Now I'm just going to come in with a tiny bit of black underneath just to balance the look that I've done on your eyebrow, top eye. So the same sort of thing, you're just pressing the colour in along the eye. We're not putting it on the waterline, we're just putting it underneath. Again, if you're not good at wearing collar or anything, this is another way of putting colour on so it looks like you're wearing eyeliner. Keep looking up for me and at something because it will help you focus. Now, once you've done it, you can run a finger just to sort of smudge and blend it. Or if you've got a cleaner edged brush, you can use that. If you just look up for me, I'll do it with my finger. Just go from one side in on both sides, just so you don't end up with it smudging again outside the shape of your eye.
I'm presumably you're pushing up slightly.
Yeah, all I'm doing is I'm just going like that and like that. Look up for me again. Bleed a little bit more on this side. Now, blush is the next one. Do you bother with that?
Sometimes.
Everybody's different because everybody's face shapes and the way the shapes of their jawbones and things do to their faces. With yourself, because you've got fantastic cheekbones.
So I've been told. I don't know what makes them fantastic, but
I always use like a pinky brown colour. This one is again a MAC one because it's a good shade. And for the benefit of the people watching, it's Cubic. Cubic and Buff are the two colours from MAC that are very good, that I like. Now, because you've got good cheekbones, all I'm going to do with the blusher is come just underneath them. Like you do when I was putting the colour onto your eye sockets. You use your cheekbone as the guide for where to put it.
And for those not so apparently fortunate?
Feel your face where your cheekbone is, so you'd feel for your cheekbone, because I've not got as defined as you have, so you feel where your cheekbone is, put the colour slightly underneath, and it will make them stand out a bit more. This will just make yours stand out amazingly though. Now, although it looks like I'm putting this on in a line, I will blend it out afterwards. So once you've put the colour on, you don't want to come any lower than the level of your mouth, any further forward. Well, at the very lowest, the edge of your mouth, at the corner of your nose there. You don't really want, that's sort of maximum, I'll do it that way, the maximum lengths that you want to go to. So that's about centre of the eye-ish forwards and no lower. Because if you do it like that, that's when you start to look like, Aunt Sally. or if you do it in sort of like circles across the cheeks. Now that will define the shape of your face. If you want to add colour to your cheeks, that's where you come in with your bronzer to make yourself look like you've got a nice tan, and you come with bronzer where you naturally tan, so you come across the nose, across the cheeks, across the forehead, tip of your chin. You wouldn't put bronzer all over your face because we don't naturally bronze all over our faces. That's still quite hot that side. Now I always blend it just with my fingers. or my hands like that, depends what mood I'm in. If you find at this stage after you've powdered that you end up with any dry areas of skin, a nice product is Elizabeth Arden 8 Hour Cream. It's not a cheap product, it is very thick though, and you don't need very much. It has got lanolin in it and petroleum, so if you've got allergy to either of those, wouldn't recommend it. So it comes out quite thick. And all you do is work it into the back of your hand, so you've got a tiny bit on your finger. So it's a bare shine. And if you've got anywhere that goes, you know, particularly dry in your skin, and you look like you get a slight patch of it here, you just tap it into your foundation and then powder it afterwards. And if you've got any dry flakes that pick up on your skin, it will flatten them down. But remember to powder it, otherwise it will stand out like a shiny patch on the face. It's good for chapped skin, windburn, sunburn, all sorts of other things as well. I'm just going to put some powder on that. And just powder it off. And you turn back. Gone's the shiny patch. And also gone the dry patch of skin. I mean, some people have got minimal dry areas, some people have got quite strong dry areas. Now, defining eyebrows, you have choices. I know that there are some individuals watching who might just be cross-dressers rather than trans women. If you don't want to pluck out all of your eyebrows to make them look really girly, there are ways of doing it. I will at some point do a video on how to. Today, all I'm going to do is define what Kat's got naturally going on.
Because she's stupid, she hasn't got them sorted yet.
Well, you know where I am. You've found my house now. I tend to use either an angled brush like the one we used for doing the eyeliner or the straight edge one. Either one of them will do. I showed them both to you earlier. I'm using the straight one for this. This is a matte brown shadow. It's quite dark. It's not scary. It looks scary, but it's not. Too shimmery. Needs absolutely no shine in it at all.
That shade?
Yeah. Work it into the brush, same as we did when we were doing the eyeliner. Take the excess off on the back of your hand. And what you're doing is you find where your arch of your eye is and start to basically brush the colour at the arch and down to the edge of the eye, and then come back to the start of the eye. Because you don't want to make the middle of it look like it's really thick. So if you just turn to camera, come and focus that a bit better. You're very good at nearly tipping the camera over. You see the difference?
Not a brilliant screen on the camera, but I can see the difference.
There is a mirror behind it. So you start at the arch, come down, and then come back to the start of the eyebrow. The reason why you don't do the start of the eyebrow first is so you don't end up with too much colour build-up in it. If you've got any missing areas of eyebrows, for anybody who's got bald spots or white hairs growing or anything like that, this is a brilliant way of filling it in, and you can't tell. And it looks natural. It's not as thick and as heavy as if you're using an eyeliner, a brow liner pencil or anything. Right, your lipstick. Kat wanted to learn how to use this nice bright red shade. If you're going to use a nice bright red shade, you don't want to do too much on your eyes because it's a strong colour. So if you're going to do strong,
slightly strong.
If you're going to use a strong colour on your lips, you want hardly anything going on your eyes because otherwise it clashes. If you're quite happy to have clashing makeup and you can pull it off, then knock yourselves out, which is what I do, but it doesn't suit everybody. Now, I find working with the brush a lot easier than working with the stick itself. Important thing is to use a lip liner. Red lipsticks bleed, so you'll find that they feather and start to creep up the creases in our lips. I did that with you the other day. Where's it gone? There it is. I always use a neutral lip liner. which is a sort of natural brown sort of colour, which is not too dissimilar from everybody's natural lip colour. If you can find one that's a perfect match for your own lips, you will never need any other colour lip liner. Because it'll work with every colour then. So, you're outlining your lips, you're following the natural shape on the outer line, which is where the shadow from the pink tinge of your lips ends. If you've got an odd shaped mouth where it doesn't quite mirror the same shape each side, you can correct it, but I'll have to save that for a later demonstration because it will just confuse people now. Actually, I can with your mouth here. If you just turn to the camera, Cat has a lip that comes slightly lower on this side than that side. All you'll do, if you look at your own lips in the mirror, you'll see that although you've got a darker patch here, the shape that sticks out is still in the same place. So all you do is you slightly outline where it doesn't quite match to give you an equal shape. So you line on it on the one side and slightly below on the other, but only slightly. And then it comes back up to the same place. It's quite common. Not many people have got perfect shaped lips.
I bet not even Marilyn Monroe.
Then what you do is you come in with a lip brush. I'll just find mine from wherever I've stuffed it. There it is. Now I always work it, because I've put the lipstick on the back of my palette there for hygiene. You just work your brush into your lipstick. And what I do is I start with the bottom lip, so if you just drop your jaw for me. You get the body of colour in the middle of your lips. And when you're putting it on with the brush, you can follow the line that you've done with your pencil. And you put it just to the line. You don't go over it, especially with red. Because if you go over it, that won't stop it from bleeding then. With practice, we get used to doing our own lips. I can do mine almost without looking now. I know other people who can do it without looking all the time, which is people who clearly wear lipstick every day. You will find that with practice, the brush or the lipstick itself will naturally sit in the right place, and you'll just do it without thinking about it. Because like you said, you're not used to doing it, confidence with it and things will come with practice. Now I always do the Cupid's bow before I do the rest of the top of the lip, so that then as you're brushing it in, you don't mess up your shape. Drop your lip in for me. It is longer with a brush than if you're doing it out of the stick, but you have far better control over it. Press together. Now once you've done it, I always come down the Cupid bow just to make sure that nothing over-sits where it should. And you can just touch up the shape. You find as you press together, you sometimes get it so that it just presses over the edge. If you set your lipstick, take a tissue, open for me, close down and bite and roll your lips on the tissue. That takes off most of it, and then you can blot it over the top. And it seems ridiculous, but you've blotted it into the lips. All you then do is across the bits that stand out the most, you just touch it up. And you wouldn't need to blot that bit then. Now, for anybody who's a smoker, you'll find that lipstick will transfer through the day and you will need to repeatedly touch it up. There are other options available so that it doesn't. Colour-wise with the red, that's not too bad. I'd say overall, if you wanted to wear red, you might need a slightly darker shade.
Slightly darker shade of red?
More brown shade than an orange.
Well, I did set you a challenge.
I might do... just put a little bit of mine on it, which is a little more... see, it's still very red. It's not quite as orange. Yeah, that shade's better for you. I did find a red on the high street that matched this quite closely for the customer I did a fancy dress makeup as Snow White for. So I will look...
Are you saying I'm Snow White?
No, but as in the shade that I chose, because she wanted to look like Snow White. I've got it written down on my phone somewhere, I'll show it you after, so you know which one it is.
Okay.
And if anybody else is interested in a darker red, I'll put it in the link for you, or in the comment box. So, that is a makeup done. Please look to the camera. Of course, now we need to put your hair on. So which one do you want to go with? Your normal one or your longer one?
Up to you. Let's go with the longer one. See how that
Okay.
goes.
Let me put it down. Put it back into here. One's right colours. I'll do
With the longer one, you don't need to put the hair up.
Are you not going to put your hair up?
You don't need to.
Okay. Can you please hold the front of that as I bring it in? Put your hand
You'll
under.
find it.
And then I'll just straighten you out. Getting wigs to sit right over the ears. Because once you've got it in the front, you have to run your fingers around the edge and get the bits to come over your ears. I'm not pulling too hard on you, am I?
No.
This cut really suits you. I think you look better with longer hair. I've only ever seen you in a short one before. Have a look. So there we have it, cat all made up.